Here we are in the final week of the season, week 17. All of the work, all of the drafting, all of the talking, all of the trades, all of that stuff. A championship is over. We're wrapping up. Oh, hey, look, all the quarterbacks are sitting out for this particular game. Here we are for our second to last podcast of the season. Jed over in suburb Illinois, Jimmy over in Phoenix. Welcome, everyone, this morning.
Can you imagine if the championship was played this week? This
I know.
the championship,
I was just thinking that, even as hard as last week was and the previous week, it still would have been better than this week. So I hope people didn't make that mistake and are playing into the week 18. That would be bad.
No, I mean, look at it. Lamar's out, McCaffrey's out, Mahomes is out, Herbert is. All these guys are. I'm looking at the list right now. Everyone's out.
Yeah. And we need to start with congratulations for Tommy for winning our league that the three of us are in, our keeper league. So that was an impressive, semifinal to barely beat Jimmy. I forgot how many points, but it was like it was less than 1 point difference, and then a win in the championship. Congrats.
It was 0.04, Jed. All I needed was 1 yard from McCaffrey. And I actually thought I had it because I was like, all they were going to do is they were going to have this guy run in, but they didn't. Brock Purdy tried to pass it a couple times, and that was it.
Yeah, I was waiting for a Roquan Smith half a tackle. That's what I thought was going to do Ian.
Yeah. I actually lost in my semifinal the same week by 0.76, and I felt really bad until I saw yours, Jimmy, and then I was like, okay, that's worse. 0.04.
Wait, so did you win your work league or did you lose your work league?
So I lost this semi, so I got third place. So I came in third there. So I came in third, so it was okay.
Yeah. Well, out of all my 8 leagues, I won 2 first place. One of them I won $500, so I was happy about that.
That's great.
Yeah, but it was close again.
Even our keeper league, if you have won against me, you have won against Chris because he's struggling.
Chris's team was not that good. No, Chris's team was not that good. Yeah, but I don't know what to do next year because I've got. We'll talk a little bit about this later, but I got Austin Eckler. I've got a bunch. Tony Pollard, like 2 out of the 5 players that were the most disappointing this year I have on my keeper team. So the question I have is do I want to keep them? But I really don't have any other options, and I'm just hoping for a bounce back from them next year.
I don't know. I would definitely keep Eckler. I think he'll be fine. But Pollard, I don't know. Pollard was so disappointing. That was he definitely hurt me on a couple teams.
Yeah.
And Jim, for me, when I played you, hey, look, Devontae Adams stunk, but he did come on at least for the last couple of weeks. CeeDee Lamb was just outstanding the last 3 weeks. And also Puka Nacua has always been my star. I picked him up off of waivers. He has been my star. And believe it or not, on defense, Bobby Wagner really carried my defense this year.
Well, didn't you have Kyren Williams on the team as well too?
Nope, I did not.
No, someone else. Yeah, in this league, someone else has. But Kyren Williams, I think, is the waiver wire star. Like, he was unbelievable. Definitely a keeper. He's just going to be a solid player going forward.
Yeah. I was listening to you. I was listening to a couple of ESPN podcasts, and they were saying the 3 running backs that they think is going to go in the first round next year: Bijan, McCaffrey, and Kyren Williams. They were like, I don't know if I would pick a Saquon or a Tony Pollard or even potentially an Eckler, but for sure Bijan, Kyren, and McCaffrey early on. Right now, they're talking about those 3.
Yeah, but even with that, Algier over at Atlanta got played a lot. So I don't know if Arthur Smith is going to be around or not. But if Arthur Smith is going to be around, they're going to keep playing Algier as well as Bijan Robinson. And don't forget Jonathan Taylor. I know he had a down year, but I think he still has potential.
Yeah, I would agree. I like Bijan, but not top, not first round. I don't think he's even because there. I would take, for example, ETN. I thought ETN had a really good year, proved out. And even Breece Hall. If you look top 10, Breece Hall had good points. And if he gets his quarterback back next year, so I don't know. I would question that, but definitely Christian McCaffrey to me is probably the MVP of the fantasy league. He was amazing. Start to finish, so great pull.
But honestly, I could see Christian McCaffrey having a down year next year. You kept waiting for an injury, a soft calf issue. Now, right now, he has a calf issue. He'll be out for this week's game. He has 3 weeks to prepare for the next game that he plays. But that's my problem with Christian McCaffrey. You never know when he goes down.
So according to fantasy data, right, here's the top 5 players and what they scored. Number 1 top scorer for this year was Josh Allen at 369 points. Jalen Hurts was number 2 at 356. Lamar Jackson was at 331. McCaffrey was at 324. And Dak Prescott was at 317. Yeah. But the person we were all talking about, Jordan Love, number 6 at 300. So he wasn't the top 5, but he was the 6th. He scored the 6th most points this year.
And wouldn't you be I was a little surprised by the very fact Josh Allen, because I felt like he wasn't all there this year. There was a lot of inconsistencies with the Josh Allen.
Yeah, and the team,
when he scored, he scored. When he scored, he scored.
Exactly. And this is where fantasy versus reality is kind of interesting, because the team didn't play as well. So I think that's why we felt like, man, Josh Allen wasn't doing as good because the team wasn't winning as much. But statistically, he definitely was there. I mean, every year the top 10 is always filled with quarterbacks when you look at total points. It's just impressive that Christian McCaffrey as a running back made it in there. CeeDee Lamb made it into the top 10. I think Tyreek Hill, depending on your scoring, was right at the end there. Like those guys breaking past, because quarterbacks are always going to be the highest scoring. But I agree, Jordan Love, that was that's pretty amazing. A lot of people probably got Jordan Love off of the waivers.
CeeDee Lamb scored the most for wide receivers at 245, but Tyreek Hill right underneath at 243. The surprise, Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert scored 242 points, and Kyren Williams scored 223. So Mostert, let me see who else.
It's Mostert and then ETN and then Kyren Williams. And then Rashad White. Rashad White and Mostert were the 2 surprises. Like if you hit on Mostert and Rashad White, you probably got them very, very late or off of your waivers, and so you probably did pretty well.
Now the forward where Raheem Mostert is, a lot of times Achane was out for a number of weeks, and he was a rookie. Let's see what happens in his second year. Kyren Williams would have had an even better year, but he was out for a long time on injury as well too. So I'm excited to see what happens to Kyren Williams.
So in this other league that we have, Tom, I actually, the same week that I lost to Tommy, I actually lost in semifinal to his team. It's because my brother traded Lamar Jackson. Tom, who did you get for Lamar Jackson? Do you remember?
I completely forgot, but
Lamar Jackson won the championship for them because he came on those last few weeks.
Yeah,
he was so good. But this guy getting Lamar Jackson really did it for him. Yeah.
And I remember why I made that trade, because I was sitting there. I had Kyren Williams coming back. I had Achane coming back, everything like that.
You had CJ Stroud, right?
CJ Stroud was doing so well, and Kenneth Walker. I need to bolster up my running backs for the playoff run. So I traded a Lamar Jackson for CJ Stroud and Kenneth Walker.
I mean, on paper that looks good, but Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's the MVP, and that essentially won the championship for this guy.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson and CeeDee Lamb, I think, were the fantasy playoff MVPs. Like they had incredible days, so probably carried a lot of teams.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. Lamar Jackson was a free agent this year. Why don't you think teams picked him up? Was it just because they questioned his accuracy, they questioned his injury? Because he could have gone to any team out there. Miami could have picked him up. The Jets could have picked him up. Someone could have picked him up.
I would imagine it's the same thing we were talking about Justin Fields right now, right? The question then becomes, is Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields? Because I didn't think Lamar was worth it. I don't know if Justin Fields is worth it. But what they were saying is once you put some good tools around these guys, right? Like look at the players that they surrounded Lamar with this year. And the same thing argument can be made for Fields. If they put the right people around them, these quarterbacks can do well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Lamar is always, there's been some kind of a media bias against him for some reason. I hope that it's not racial, but he's constantly undervalued, constantly like underrated. If you look at his numbers, his accuracy, I would even argue, Jimmy, that without people around him, the guy still performs. Like he is a true superstar. I mean, having 2 MVPs is unbelievable. So the guy, I mean, to me, you got to look at your Super Bowl picks. He's got to be right there as one of the tops for the.
But I think, remember last year towards the end of the season, he didn't play for like the last 4 or 5 games, right? I think that also turned some people against him because technically, if I remember correctly, the medical expert says, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
but he was like, well, I'm not going to play unless I feel like I'm 100%.
Yeah.
My guess is that left a bad taste in a number of teams' mouths.
Yeah. Now, he's always been undervalued. I still remember him coming out of Louisville. He was the 16th pick in the first round a number of years ago. But this year, a lot of times he lost J.K. Dobbins at the beginning of the season. He lost Mark Andrews. And I wouldn't say Odell and some of the wide receivers are the best of the wide receivers, but he did really well. Now, it does help that he has such a great defense in Patrick Queen as well as Roquan Smith.
Yeah, I'm curious what they're going to do with both Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews back next year, right? That would be an interesting if they start employing 2 tight end sets with both those guys. Could be very interesting.
Yeah. So, hey, just looking at here's a couple of more interesting things from the data, right? Cracking the top 10 this year, Jared Goff comes in at number 9, and Baker Mayfield, who no one thought about, comes in at number 10.
Yeah, he had a great year, and that's also why when the wide receivers, Mike Evans, also cracks the top 10 unexpectedly and had a great year. So another wide receiver, if he picked up, I think like Mike Evans. And then who's the other? There's 2 other wide receivers who I was like, if you picked up those guys, Mark Allen. So I think Allen and then Mike Evans were the 2 wide receivers that were surprises.
My brother will like this because he likes IDP players. The top defensive player in terms of fantasy this year who scored more than A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, James Cook, David Montgomery. Guess who it was?
Roquan Smith.
Nope. Aluakon from Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
He came in at 185 total points. Think about this. Breece Hall came in at 187 points. So he was just 2 points under Breece Hall. Look, you picked the right defensive player. They work well for you. TJ Watt came in right afterwards at 184.
Yeah, I had Aluakon. I had him on, but I forgot if I drafted him or if I picked him up off of the waivers.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
You need to find somebody who is a linebacker and gets a lot of tackles, but also occasionally will get a sack a game and has double-digit sacks. And once in a while, they'll get interception return for a touchdown or something like that.
Yeah.
I would probably say the most disappointing of all the quarterbacks for me this year, Trevor Lawrence. Such high expectations, but a huge disappointment.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. I you know what? When they came in, I would say Trevor Lawrence was potentially one of the top 5, if not the top 10. This year, he finished at number 15 total fantasy points. Right, like I just don't think he met any of the expectations. Above him, Sam Howell, C.J. Stroud, Tua, Russell Wilson, Baker, Jared, Mahomes, Jordan Love, even Brock Purdy scored more than him this year. So do you guys think that Justin Fields is going to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks next year, wherever whether it's the Bears or somebody else?
I don't know. I don't know about top 5. That's pretty high. That's pretty high watermark. Top 10, possibly. I mean, especially if he's throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
Right. Look, if he's got Harrison Jr., I think he's going to be good.
If you could get Marvin Harrison Jr. with your second pick, get an offensive line, and if you could now at the same time, if you could then trade down with Washington or New England with your number 1 draft pick, and what they're saying is if you trade down, you're going to get more than you receive from Carolina, get their number 1 draft pick, get their 3rd round draft pick, get their 2nd and 1st round draft pick for next year. I would love to see a Washington, New England.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about this. Do you guys think the Bears should keep or are going to keep Justin Fields?
It sounds like they're going to keep him, and which is what I was hoping they would do. But lately I'm looking at more and more stats and analysis, and he does not look, if you look on paper, if you look at the stats, he doesn't look great. And so I don't know. I think maybe at this point, though, given all the draft picks, you don't want to start over with another new quarterback. And so you stick with him and try to build around him. But I would say that if you look at the stats pretty closely, it's a little bit concerning.
Yeah. And if you look at the money wise, that means you're going to have to pick up his 5th-year contract next year. Then the following year, he gets a huge pay raise, $25-30 million a year. You don't want to be stuck with the quarterback that's below top 10 at 25-30 million versus if you pick a top quarterback like Caleb Williams, Drew Mays, whatever it is, you're still under rookie contract and a lot of cap space to surround himself with it.
Yeah.
My guess, if I were to make a bet right now, they'll keep Justin Fields. They're going to try to trade this number 1 draft pick to get a haul in, right? And then they're going to try to either get that tight end or Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver from Washington, and some line help. My guess is that's the direction they're headed towards right now.
Yeah. And then you test him out for his 5th year. And if he doesn't do it, then you're going to have to cut him. You're forced because there's no way you could pay him 25-30 million. Then you go and get Russell Wilson. I'm so kidding, but something.
Russell Wilson did pretty good. I think if you were looking at like Atlanta, Russell Wilson, I think would really help him.
Well, for $30 million, that's the big question.
Well, he's going to have to. Well, that's true because he's not going to. I don't think he's taking a pay cut. That guy's not taking a pay cut.
They wanted him to cut it down to 26, and he was willing to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So a couple questions I think we were going to talk about. Recap playoffs. So, did we learn anything from Dynasty this year? Did we learn anything from Fantasy this year that pertains to our Dynasty? Who are you guys keeping next year for your players?
Yes, let me actually bring one up to both of you guys. Yeah. Justin Herbert is a risky pick, not because of Justin Herbert. Austin Eckler is a free agent. Keenan Allen got injured. He was in my lineup. He was great the first half of the year, but he was terrible the second half of the year, and then he's out for the season. Mike Williams always starts out strong, out for the year as well, too. Justin Herbert is going to be a very, very risky pick.
What if they had like a Jim Harbaugh come in as coach, right? So I think a lot of it depends on who the coach is for San Diego.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I've got Herbert in our keeper, so I've been debating. The issue for me is Herbert, Derrick Henry. Those are 2 guys like I'm really on the fence to see. I think Tyreek Hill is an obvious keeper. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where we land.
Yeah. Jed, watch Derrick Henry. Signs with the Cowboys, pair him up with Tony Pollard. You have a 1-2 punch at least for a couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry was still top 10 running back this year. So as much as we saw him have a little bit of a down year, like he still was in top 10. So I don't think I'll be dropping him.
Yeah.
Is Puka Nacua the real deal for you guys?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
definitely. I mean, they're gonna wait for him to get the all-time rookie record this weekend, and then they're gonna sit him. That's phenomenal. Like the fact that he could beat, if you look at some of the names that he's beating to get that, that guy is the real deal for sure.
The only concern with the LA Rams is if Matthew Stafford stays healthy, and he's getting so much older in his late 30s, that's the only concern for the Rams.
Yeah. My guess is Christian McCaffrey is most likely going to go number 1. But do you think, like this year, we saw Justin Jefferson, we saw Jamar Chase. Do you think that people are going to draft a wide receiver ahead of a Christian McCaffrey?
No, I still would do Christian McCaffrey and then Kyren Williams, and then we'll look at Justin Jefferson.
Really? You're going to take Kyren Williams that fast?
Oh, yeah.
He's just only been there for 1 year. I don't know if I mean, he's like some of these running backs. I like to kind of wait a little bit. I still think you can get a good running back later on in later rounds.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Jed.
You definitely can. You can wait to get a running back. I mean, if anything, what this year proved was that it's okay to pick wide receivers first. That this was the first year that a lot of people took that, and it really paid out. Like if you look again at the top 10, so Tyreek Hill, you've got Justin Jefferson coming back up there. You've still got CeeDee Lamb. You've got some really top players that you can get in the first round. But I agree with everyone saying that CMC, Christian McCaffrey should be number 1, but there's no way he's going to end the year number 1. Like it's basic like regression to the mean. Like if you guys, any statisticians out there, regression to the mean is a constant power. It would be highly unlikely for Christian McCaffrey to be able to do that 2 years in a row.
Mm.
And Jim, I love a Sean McVay offense. He just does a great job, and that's why my hopes are high with Kyren Williams.
Yeah. Okay, so out of the 4 wide receivers, that CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek, Jamar Chase, and Jefferson, who do you think is going to go number 1 out of that lot of 4?
Jed, I would probably say Justin Jefferson, but you convinced me this year. I do like myself a Tyreek Hill. I own a Tyreek Hill. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah, to me, he proved that even with double teams, I mean, the guy he just always gets his catches. He's been much more consistent. And I think that's because Tua was healthy, right? And so the other person I would add to that list of 4, though, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, like he's in that top 5. I'd be a little bit worried about Jamar Chase. I know Joe Burrow was hurt, but I don't know. I'd be a little worried. I would not be surprised if Justin Jefferson comes back with a vengeance. Like I think that guy is mad that everyone's talking about everybody else. He's gonna come back and be like, "I'm still."
Well, isn't it a contract year for him this year too? So he's supposed to get a new contract. Yeah, I'll tell you this: I've not believed you on Tyreek Hill. I really haven't, because like the first year he came into Miami, I was like, oh, he's not going to be good with Mahomes, right? And he had that career year. And last year I was like, oh, it's a fluke. And this year, I mean, he's proved it 3 years in a row. Especially early in the season, that guy was scoring. I think CeeDee Lamb became a better fantasy wide receiver overall, but Tyreek Hill was really good this year.
Jed, Jimmy and I are in this 12-team league, and my quarterbacks toward the end, I was starting either Browning, Mullen. I drafted Damian Pierce for this team.
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's good pickup.
Flacco was good.
But week in and week out, I was in first place, completely ran with it because I had Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta every single week.
Wow, that's strong. Yeah. I mean, again, I think the 2 big trends I would say we learned from this year is 1, wide receivers in the top first round. I think that's fine. You can build around wide receivers. But 2, I would say is, to me, this is the first year, like, I really strongly needed to have 2 good quarterbacks. Like having 1 good quarterback and then just like someone off the waivers wasn't good enough. You needed 2 good quarterbacks because every week someone was either out or like the matchup meant that you needed to switch. That's the first time I felt like I could have 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, look, I was happy with Josh Allen. I also know I reached for Josh Allen this year. And it took me out in choosing a couple of players, but there's a couple of good quarterbacks that we could have gotten this year, right? Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. I mean, if you had one of those 3, I think you would have been fine.
Yeah. So, nope. Agreed.
Anyways, okay. Fantasy MVP. I know outside of Christian McCaffrey, all right, because I know we talked about Christian McCaffrey. Who was your fantasy MVP for your team? For the teams that you were playing? Tom? Who was your fantasy?
For me, a lot of times, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah. Week in, week out, he always got me more than 15 points. You could just plug and know that he was going to be there. Every single week, he was just consistent.
My biggest disappointment this year for our Dynasty League, I chose Garrett Wilson. I think I told you Garrett Wilson over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I wish, because I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to make a difference. I wish I kept Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah. For me, I mean, for me, definitely was Tyreek. I mean, I had him. He was the most consistent player I had across all my teams. But there were a couple others that I would say, like we mentioned Puka. Like Puka was a huge pickup. Also, I would say David Montgomery. We talked about Raheem Mostert, but David Montgomery, he played out pretty well despite Jahmyr Gibbs getting his points there too. And so that was another guy I had on a lot of teams.
I hated David Montgomery, because I had Jahmyr. So I had Jahmyr Gibbs, I would say, in a lot of my leagues. And he was always, there were a couple of weeks when he was out. It was great, but he took
all the touchdowns, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say the Detroit Lions do a very good job with these type of running backs. 2 years ago, it was Jamal Williams with 13 touchdowns. So they know what to do with these guys.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
and-
okay. So here's the thing. We'll talk about MVP too. But who's number one next year? Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta?
Sam Laporta.
Yeah, Laporta was so good.
Yeah, Sam Laporta.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, he was surprised. So
And Jim, on the Kansas City, if we're talking about Kansas City, don't sleep on Rice. I think he really is emerging as your top wide receiver.
Rashee Rice, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, mine. I know you guys don't like quarterbacks. Josh Allen. Josh Allen came. I mean, like we were talking earlier, even in the worst weeks, that guy was scoring me like 25 fantasy points, And so I was happy with him. Like he carried me into some victories when some of my other because some of my other positional players are so inconsistent, but Josh Allen really made a difference. And to be honest, Kyren Williams, for somebody who I found on the waiver wire and no one was paying attention to him early on, Kyren Williams was the person. Yep. So
because you had Cam Akers there, and then Kyren Williams was getting some third down back, all that other stuff. And so that people kept dropping him. And when he was injured, there's some teams who dropped him. And so a lot of times Kyren Williams was great.
Yeah. I think the one thing I learned if I were to look at Dynasty next year or Fantasy next year, picking up running backs on the waiver wire is so much more advantageous than trying to find some wide receiver or even a quarterback because all those running backs weren't out, right? And so towards the end of the season, people like a Charbonnet, a Tajay Spears,
Roschon Johnson did decent.
Right? Yeah, Kyren Williams, those guys were great to have. So
yeah. Now going back to what you were saying about quarterbacks, though, Josh Allen, I would still go and wait a little bit longer for a Jalen Hurts because I thought Jalen Hurts was just as good.
Yeah. All right, Jed, surprise of the year. I'm sure we all have talked about that. It's from the Rams guys, but who was your surprise of the pickup of the year?
Yeah, I think Puka's definitely one. We talked about Puka. We talked about Kyren Williams. I'm trying to think of anyone outside of. Mostert was drafted, hopefully, so he wouldn't have been a pickup. Yeah, I don't know. Those are two guys that come to mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you were to ask me this in the last couple of weeks, the one person that I think a lot of times that made Jacobs over Las Vegas expendable is Zamir White. In the last couple of games, he had 16, 16, and 15 points. And so the emergence of Zamir White, I think, will change the conversation for Josh Jacobs for next season.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of which, February 8th and 9th, I'm going to a Super Bowl party. You guys should come and join me in Las Vegas.
Nice.
Like, I'm being serious. You guys should join me.
That'll be a blast. That's cool.
Because that's where all the players are going to be.
Yeah, Jed, you need to head over to Las Vegas too.
We'll see. I do want to go. Did they shut down the that huge globe thing?
No, it's still there. The sphere.
Yeah, the sphere.
I think I actually think that but I was looking at tickets the other day.
Yeah.
Tickets for a show there, and it's not like the U2, right? But just to like see like a 40-minute show, it's like $160. It's pretty pricey.
Yeah, it's so cool though. Everything I've seen about that, I was like, that was really neat. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
One other thing in terms of do not sleep on George Pickens. Look, Mason Rudolph was his quarterback. At least he was better than Trubisky. He was better than Kenny Pickett. In the last two games, he had 58 points and 21 points. Don't sleep on George Pickens as well, too. So that was somebody that I have high hopes with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then also there, Jaylen Warren, I think will continue to really be able to grow in his role with Pittsburgh.
Everything out of Pittsburgh is that Pickett is going to be gone. Do you guys think that that's true?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I really like the Warren pick. I enjoyed having Warren before he got hurt. So I agree. If they could ride him, he could be a definite sleeper pick.
Yeah. The other person I really like, who I think is actually, I don't know if he'll be top 5 running back, but James Cook has really emerged. I think James Cook, Breece Hall are the two running backs. If I had a chance to take them before like a Joe Mixon, right? Or even a Derrick Henry, I would pick a James Cook and Breece Hall next year.
Yeah, agree.
And speaking of running backs, I think Aaron Jones is no longer one of your elite running backs anymore. I think a lot of times he struggled a lot, especially with the injuries as well too. don't also sleep on Javonte Williams, 1 year recover from his ACL, MCL. Look, I think a lot of times he will come back. Now, he didn't come back as fast as a Brees Hall, but I have high hopes for Javonte Williams. And then the other one that I was looking at that was a huge disappointment that drove me crazy that I will never pick again, Calvin Ridley. I probably will not pick Calvin Ridley ever again.
Mike Evans finished up with almost 200 fantasy points this year. He's a free agent next year. One, do you think he's coming back to Tampa Bay? And two, do you think he's even going to show the productivity next year?
I don't know. Yeah, probably. I wouldn't. I mean, he's definitely not going to be
He's
top
old.
10. Yeah, he's old.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Dalvin Cook. Like Dalvin Cook, he just felt like he really dropped off. I know he recently signed with Baltimore, which I think is a good move for the playoffs, but I don't think as far as fantasy, that's someone I'm looking at.
No. And his counterpart, Chris Godwin's completely gone. I mean, there's no reason why you should ever pick up Chris Godwin again.
Wait, do you think he's leaving? Or, I mean, he's staying with Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah,
because they're going to sign Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, but are you going to ever play him in fantasy again? I won't.
Well, so here's the thing: if Mike Evans is out, I mean, I wouldn't pick him towards in the first couple rounds, but I think he's a good number 3 wide receiver. I will say for Tampa Bay that if I was not high on this guy, but if there's a person I'm picking up, it's Rashid Wright.
Side note: did you notice last week's game? Which former fantasy superstar came back from the dead and got 2 touchdowns?
Nelson Aguilar?
Nope. Julio Jones.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Julio Jones, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Those were the days of Julio Jones where he got 112 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, couple questions. And we can finish this off. Jed, Kyle Pitts, is he ever going to be fantasy relevant?
No, he's not relevant. He should be on your waivers. He should be. Unfortunately, that was a guy we had such high hopes, and unfortunately, I do think it's situational. I really feel like the talent is there. They don't know how to use him. You only get a couple great games out of him, but otherwise not consistent enough. There's plenty of other guys to look to.
Yeah. Tom, Amari Cooper.
You know what? I think he's proven he'll stay at Cleveland as well too. Now the big question is if Deshaun Watson sucks again next year, what's going to happen?
Deshaun Watson was so bad. I was so surprised and happily surprised, but he was bad.
Yeah. That's a lot of money they're paying him. And can you see the Cleveland fans, because Joe Flacco will probably be sitting there. If he sucks again, they're going to be calling Flacco every single time.
Yeah. Jed, what do you think is going to happen in Denver? And are these guys even staying, like the Courtland Suttons or the Jerry Judys of the world?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't know. It's a total mess. But I still like Courtland Sutton. I think Jerry Jeudy has been like an outside, sitting kind of on that outside edge of being really like a consistent fantasy starter. But Courtland Sutton has been very good.
Yeah. A couple more. Tom, Dak Prescott, do you think they'll pay him in Dallas? And is he going to be top 5 next year?
They will pay him a huge contract. I would not be surprised if he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. But at the same time, I actually think he's a little overrated. So I don't see him as a top quarterback next year.
Yeah. Jed, word out of Vegas, Josh Jacobs may be potentially on the trading block. Do you think that he'll stay with Las Vegas, or do you think Zamir White's going to take over?
Yeah, he probably won't stay. I mean, running backs these days, it's proven that you don't want to pay big money to your running backs. It's unfortunately for them. Remember at the beginning of the season how there was a huge thing about the running backs being really like the value. People were really starting to go to the rookies and like they were really complaining, but all the stats have backed that up and all the play has backed that up. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they move on.
Yeah. All right, last one. Tom, next year, who's going to go first? For you, Jordan Love or Justin Fields?
No, if I had to pick, I'll go with Jordan Love. I'm hoping that all the people that I play against who don't listen to podcasts will sit there, Jordan Love, he's not that good. And they'll just drop and I'll go in and swoop in and get Jordan Love.
Yeah. That's good. Okay.
And then you're going to have to watch out for the guys because they're going to look at, who's the quarterback of Cincinnati? Just blanked my mind.
Burrow?
Or
Burrow.
Burrow, Burrow
People
coming
can
back.
sit there, oh, he was injured. He's not that good. And then you go in, and if it's an auction league, you'll buy him for like $5 or $6
Yeah.
or something.
Oh, here's the other thing. Okay, speaking of Burrow, Jed, you'll find this interesting. Word out of Arizona, they're going to keep Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I was just looking. In
Kyler
our
Murray.
league, Kyler Murray, you dropped him, so he's on the waiver. So
Yeah. Word is they're gonna
I'm surprised at that. But you know what? He actually, after he came back, he looked pretty good. And so fantasy wise, he was definitely relevant. So he's going to pop back into that top 10, in my opinion.
Now, right now, guys, if you look at the draft order, Arizona has the 4th pick. Then it's like New England as well as I forgot who the other team is. I would probably make a pick. No, Washington and New England. I would make a trade with one of those two to try to stock up if I were the Bears. Yeah. And then also with the Washington, I have a feeling Ron Rivera come Monday will be fired.
Yeah. So here's I actually think New York's got Daniel Jones, right?
I don't know. Daniel Jones was terrible.
I can see Tennessee going after another quarterback, but the people who's going to want quarterbacks is going to be a Tennessee, a Washington, New England, in Atlanta, and Las Vegas.
Those New England, you got to watch what's going to happen to the coach, because if Belichick is out, then definitely I think they're going to pick a quarterback. But if he's in, he doesn't pick quarterbacks in the first round.
Yeah. I would go with someone as desperate as Washington, because New England tends to be a little conservative. They're not going to trade a lot of draft picks. They actually love to accumulate draft picks. Washington is going to be so desperate to find, and once they get rid of their head coach, all of that stuff, new ownership, you go with those guys and try to get a whole truckload of draft picks.
Yeah, that's smart.
Right now, they said the 2 people that are the most likely trade partners for potentially the Bears, Atlanta, and then also Atlanta and who's the other one I was just looking at? Atlanta, Las Vegas. The problem is Las Vegas right now is at number 11 and Atlanta is number 9. Yeah. So even if they trade them, you're not getting anything good in return. So
okay. Yeah, I probably would say you just don't want to jeopardize Marvin Harrison, because you need a Marvin Harrison. And so a lot of times you want to make sure that you're able to still stay with Marvin Harrison.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
Super Bowl pick. Who's our Super Bowl pick?
San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm sticking. Yeah. I had the 49ers over Philadelphia, which sounds pretty good now, although I think Baltimore is still in there, but I think the 49ers still look really good.
I will argue it's Baltimore versus San Fran, with Baltimore winning out on top.
I would love to see Detroit make a good run, though, guys. It's been fun seeing them, suddenly.
Yeah, I just don't think. I mean, I think they're good, but I don't think they're that good yet.
Yeah.
As much as I know people don't like the Cowboys, I would like to see the Cowboys go a little bit further, because I feel like they're always disappointing in the playoffs. So I would at least like to have them make into like the semifinals or something like that.
They have the pieces. I mean, their defense, when they're playing well, is just really good.
Yeah. Hey, and I think a lot of times Miami will be disappointing during the playoff run, but just in case, don't sleep on Kansas City, because they always seem to do well during these playoffs.
Actually, the group I'm hoping that they make the playoffs is Buffalo. I actually think that they're kind of gelling together at the right time, and actually they're going to be pretty fearful going in. And going back to tomorrow's game, I think the Bears are going to beat the Packers. I think the Packers are going to be knocked out of the playoffs.
I hope so. That would be great.
I think the Bears are going to want to knock them out.
My problem is every single time you have high hopes for the Bears against the Packers, they end up they have not won in Lambeau Field since 2015. All right. Yeah. It's been 8 years now. And so whenever you think they're going to do well, they just lay an egg.
But think about it. I was watching, I think, Tommy, you shared it on your Facebook, right? I was watching this video where they were announcing the Pro Bowl winners.
Yeah.
I think ever since Montez Sweat came into the Bears lineup,
so
the Bears defense is actually really good. They're going to sign Jalen Johnson, right? They got Edwards. They got the 2 Edwards, Edmonds and Edwards. Their defense is actually not bad.
Hey, I am glad that they signed Montez Sweat because they had a choice between Chase Young or Montez Sweat.
Yep.
The 49ers said no to Chase Young and
Yeah.
yes to Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
And Chase Young went to San Francisco, but I think he's actually been better than Chase Young.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because
Exactly.
he's younger. Wait, who's no, I think Montez Sweat is older than Chase Young, right?
He
Chase
is,
Young,
but remember Chase Young got that big injury.
yeah. So yeah.
Do you guys happen to see that Aaron Rodgers is in hot water? I don't know if anyone.
Oh yeah,
that.
with the Jimmy Kimmel.
With Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, I'm dying. Like I don't like that guy, so I love.
Well,
that
they're
he's taking
saying
a lot of heat.
They're saying ESPN needs to respond, because ESPN and Aaron Rodgers isn't going to say anything, but they're saying that ESPN is going to have to respond to it.
Yeah.
But in general, I just don't like the shtick of Patrick McAfee. I just don't like Patrick McAfee.
Oh, that whole I will not watch that show. I mean, it's basically like a white frat boy podcast. I'm not listening to that.
Yeah.
To talk about basketball real fast of a Andre Drummond with double-digit rebounds every single game.
Hey, my team is coming back, Tommy. I'm finally paying attention now, and so I had a good week. I'm coming back.
Jed, I wanted to come back next Friday for the Bulls versus Golden State Warriors, because that's where the Ring of Honor is going to be. But I couldn't justify the $4,000 tickets to be on the first level. I mean, those tickets are they are expensive.
Yeah.
But think about it. All of the championship team is going to be there. Jordan's back. I think they did it so that Kerr's going to be there as well too.
Yeah. No, that'll be exciting.
Jed, if I look at your team right now, I mean, Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving has been injury prone this entire year. Aaron Gordon, who got bit by a dog, is now coming back as well too. Yeah. But for some reason, you have Kelly Olynyk sitting there. Caruso will get you your steals.
Yeah.
And then Wembanyama still is a little injury prone. But the one person who I think will do well if he ever gets healthy, Mark Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The center position. Yeah. No, I know I paid a price to get Wembanyama, but I still love having him, and the team's going to round out. I'm not worried at all. It's just about getting healthy.
By the way, he's an obscure player, but you know who's actually I think is going to do it? Isaiah Quickly, who just got traded to Toronto. He became a starter, scored 26 points. I was like, oh, you paid attention to that guy.
Well, but one of the things I heard or was reading, the reason why Toronto was willing to trade with the Knicks is they really wanted Quickly. RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett with his contract was a behemoth of a contract, and he scores a lot of points at a low percentage, and he doesn't get you anything else. So they'll deal with him, but they really wanted Quickly.
Well, that's who is that? Stephen A. Smith was saying that as well too. They said he was like, I like the trade. But he wished they were able to keep Quickly because he's the sixth man of the year, right? And now that he's a starter, I think he's going to show some good numbers.
Yeah. Now the big question is what's going to happen with Siakam and Gary Trent. So you trade those guys, and then you still have a Thaddeus Young sitting there, and there are some people that will need a rim protector. So you're going to have to work. And the Bulls on their end is they just need to get rid of Zach LaVine. Trade him already. Now I know the LA Lakers do not want to give up Austin Reeves, but maybe trade him to someone else. But at this rate, I say just trade him for something.
Yeah. So okay, hey, I got to go. But hey, I want to let you guys know I did talk to that corporate sponsor we're talking about. He's in next year.
Oh, right. Yes. No, so next year, guys, we're going to have our first sponsored league. Look out for that. I'm so excited.
He said he's in for 1,000.
Yeah, that's so awesome. We're going to do this sponsored league where basically the three of us are going to go up against, either some listeners or people from the corporate sponsor and see if we can back up our talk and actually win for $1,000 pot. That's really cool.
Yeah. I think that'll be fun.
All right.